There's a line from A New Hope that I think is entirely appropriate for this moment. It's said by Sir Alec Guinness right after he's rescued Mark Hamill from the Sand People. Guinness's character asks Hamill's character, "What brings you out so far in the Gungan wastes?" And Mark's character then gestures star 2, D2, and says this little droid is looking for his former master, and someone called Obi-Wan Kenobi. And Luke then says, "Do you know who this little droid is talking about?" And Old Ben pauses for a moment, and when he then says, "Now that's a name I haven't heard for a long time. A long time." And speaking of names you haven't heard for a long time, welcome back to Looking at Lucasfilm, the podcast with a different perspective on the world of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and all of the other entities that George Lucas, Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, and the rest of the team at Lucasfilm have dreamed up over the past 40 years. Now, Dan Z and I recorded a new edition of this show back in January of 2021, and he and I paused working together because, frankly, Dan was about to get very, very busy. And, well, not just for Coffee with Kenobi, Dan's great podcast, which, by the way, just launched a killer new line of merch, but also Dan's brand new book, Star Wars, I Am Your Father, Lessons for Parents, Protectors, and Mentors. Dan wrote this book with Anne Richlaw. DK is sending the 64-page tome out into stores on May 31st. Be the perfect Father's Day gift. Anyway, so the plan was I would just pause production of Looking at Lucasfilm for a few weeks, with the idea being I'd create a respectful distance between the version of the podcast I did with Dan Z and then the new version with another host. So how is it that 16 months went by? This was not the plan. The show was supposed... I just got busy, folks. I just got busy. And kept intending to revive the show. But then a very good friend of mine, someone I have known for, dear Lord, how many years now?
About 20 years.
20 years. Okay. Yeah. Yes, Brian Gaughan reached out, and you offered yourself up and nudged me back into bringing back the show, right?
Well, yeah, I did that, but I had to do it in such a way that I had to make sure that you wanted to do it. And basically I said, I didn't hear your reviews about the second Mandalorian series, and I really miss it, or Boba Fett. Yeah. And I'm going, there was something wrong. It didn't seem the same, that I didn't hear what Jim had to say about it. So I used that as a little way to get into that and go, well, what about me? And then I told you about, my...
Well, let's
okay.
Okay.
Am I getting ahead of myself?
Let's not open the kimono just yet. I mean, I just, if I sound excited, there's a reason I'm excited. Because, first of all, again, I've been looking forward to bringing back the show, and the very thing that Brian was just saying, when the second season of The Mandalorian was on, and when the Book of Boba Fett was on, it's like, oh, I should really be talking about that. But to be able to do this with Brian, I'm an entertainment writer. I watch a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff, whereas Brian has actually worked in this industry. In fact, it is so appropriate that you live out in L.A., you've been a fan of Star Wars since, you actually went the opening weekend to the Mann's Chinese Den, or...
No, actually, I was living in Orange County, and it opened up in only 37 theaters or 32 theaters that on Wednesday, and then the weekend it opened up in 5 more. And that usually happened with a big film. It would open up in LA at the Chinese or the one of the Westwood theaters, like the Avco or stuff like that. And that's what happened. It opened at the Avco and the Chinese. But for some reason this time they opened it up in Orange County also at the Orange Center Plitt Theaters.
Please explain. Having it at this theater is really cool because it was like one of the biggest screens in...
Well, no, it didn't get there yet. That's the whole thing. Okay. It wasn't the big screen. The big screen was actually across from where I lived in Newport Beach in Big Canyon, which was the biggest screen on the west of the Mississippi. And they did not open it there because I guess Old Man Edwards did not think a sci-fi film, and that's what they called them, sci-fi films, would do well in his big theater. Of course, a month later, he did put it in the big theater, and it was, even after a month later, it was selling out there. And I had actually saw it a couple times there. My parents are, my dad was the kind of person that he wouldn't leave the house until the movie started. And then he would get to the theater, and we'd be climbing over people and, wouldn't be able to sit together. So I went over there for them, and I sat in line for 2 hours, and then they came right away. But because they were older people at the time, nobody got upset, and I had told that I'm waiting for my parents, and so it was pretty cool. But at that time, it was like the 5th or 6th time I had seen the film.
On a screen that size, this must have played, New Hope must have played beautifully. It
was amazing.
Drew and I were just talking about, he was out for CinemaCon, which of course is the big exhibitor thing that's done every year in Las Vegas. And those folks right now are really heartened because it looks like we're all going back to the movie theaters. In fact, they're really intrigued to see what happens this coming weekend with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But it's hard to explain what it was like in 1977 to be in a theater, especially that first time when the Millennium Falcon comes diving out of the sun.
Yeah.
When Luke's in the trench and I have you now. And that noise, when it's a theater full of people who've never seen this film before and the Millennium Falcon comes diving out of the sun. You couldn't hear the dialogue from the cheering and the noises the audience made for the next 30 seconds, which we kind of lose today. And don't get me wrong, it's cool to be home in front of your laptop or your flat screen and see these things. Brian and I are the same animal, all right? We're the same age. We saw these things in theaters. That's where our enthusiasm comes from. But what makes Brian especially a special animal is you've actually worked in the industry. In fact, when we started off, I was trying to point out that, hey, you live in L.A., and then the first film you worked on in the industry was To Live and Die in L.A. with Friedkin.
Yeah, William Friedkin.
Please tell the story about the Chinese theater in regard to, it was a Friedkin that forced Star Wars out of the theater, right?
The whole thing is that year, everybody thought that the main summer film would be William Friedkin's version of Wages of Fear called The Sorcerer. Not The Sorcerer, but Sorcerer with Roy Scheider.
There we go. Yep.
Which he had used in French Connection. So the Chinese theater in Hollywood, which it's possibly at that time was the epitome. That was where you wanted to play. You wanted to play there, or you wanted to play in the dome, the Cinerama Dome. But the Chinese was the best place to have the premieres and all that stuff. So Star Wars opened there, and then I think it was going to be there for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then Sorcerer was going to come. Now, also at the time, there wasn't the big mall next to it. There was an open wall next of the Chinese theater.
Right.
And what they would do is they would paint the poster on the wall. So you'd have this mural of the poster. So you had this mural of Star Wars, and then 3 weeks later they painted it over and they put Sorcerer up there. But the thing is everybody was seeing Star Wars. The main reason why is because it opened, the date I'll never forget, May 25th, 1977, which was a Wednesday. Now, at the time, most films opened on Wednesday, so they could get a running start into the weekend. Only very, very special films opened on Friday, and then in the 90s, that all switched.
Yeah, it did.
So there they were with this movie that was, people were waiting in line, and that was the main thing, is because of the first 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, of people waiting in line, that became news, and all the news stations had it. Well, and people are going, wait, if these people are waiting in line, this must be a film that I have to see. And that weekend, which was Memorial Day weekend, I had seen it again. I had seen it on the Thursday, And then I went by myself because nobody would go with me. Nobody wanted to see a movie called Star Wars. Only geeks who read comic books, like I was at the time, I was 16, would want to see this film. But then everybody's talking about it. It was sort of on the cover of Time magazine. It was supposed to be, but what was Anwar Sadat? No, who was the Begin? Yeah, he became like the first conservative to be elected in Israel, and he pushed Star Wars off the cover, but it was on the cover of American Cinematography. It was on the cover of I think Cine FX was out at that time. So all the nerds and the geeks and the comic book guys, they were in line for the first 3 days, and I was one of them. But then everybody heard about the movie, and everybody wanted to see it. And that weekend, I saw it 4 more times with different friends because they didn't want to go see it alone. So they wouldn't go with me, but I had to go with them.
That's killer.
And then what happened was, Sorcerer did not do that well.
It didn't, and in fact, that was the surprise of the summer of 77. You thought for sure the guy who did The Exorcist, that, can't wait for the next film from the guy from The Exorcist. But what's intriguing about what you described, the phenomenon of people lining up, in a weird sort of way, Jaws plowed the road.
Oh, absolutely.
For the success of Star Wars. I mean, because remember, the very first time you heard the stories about, look at, the lines outside of the theater, people waiting to get in to see
was Jaws, yeah.
And again, Jaws created the summer blockbuster, for lack of a better term. And so in a weird sort of way, the media was primed for the next big blockbuster to come over the hill. It certainly didn't hurt the narrative because it's like, oh, it's another young filmmaker like Spielberg. This is George Lucas, the guy who did American Graffiti. And
well, I knew this too, and that's why I got there on Thursday 2 hours earlier, because when I originally saw Jaws, it was playing at a theater that wasn't near us, so we'd have to take the bus. We being my brothers and I had 2 brothers. And I was 15, and actually I wasn't even 15 yet. I was 14, and my brothers were 12 and 9. And I had read the book, and I knew that this was going to be a good, and a shark.
Well, wait a minute. You read the Alan Dean Foster book ahead of going to see A New Hope? Really?
Actually, Peter Benchley, but yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Jaws.
But the reason why is because I loved movies. And there was a movie out in 1971 or 1972 called The Exorcist.
Yes.
And my parents would not let me see it because it was rated R. So this 13-year-old or 12-year-old Catholic boy read The Exorcist, and it scared the living baloney out of me. Okay,
that was the Peter Blatty book, right?
Yeah, Peter Blatty, and I mean, because all the Catholic stuff was in there. So then I begged my parents. I said, I read the book. You have to take me to the movie. So my dad said, okay, I'll take you to the movie, and he took me to the movie on Easter Eve. Right?
What a good dad!
I'll tell you that story later. I mean, because that night I was convinced that the devil was out to get me. I really thought that was going to happen. But so that was my first. I realized that so with Jaws, my brothers and I, we waited in line. Well, we got there for the 12 o'clock show, but it was sold out. So we had to wait for the next show. And we got in there, and the movie so intrigued. Well, we loved the movie, so we saw it again. And then it was nighttime, and I didn't want to take the bus, so I decided I was going to call my parents to pick us up. They weren't home, so we saw it a third time. Because that was the time they weren't kicking you out of the theater.
That's right.
They didn't do that for Star Wars either. If you wanted to sit in the theater and watch it again, they would let you do that.
Wow.
So I knew I had to, for Star Wars, I knew I had to wait in line, and I got there early, and I got a great seat, and I sat next to some soccer mom with her kids and stuff like that. And I had never seen anything like it in my whole entire life.
What a lot of people don't understand is there was not just the used future aesthetic that Lucas used for the film itself, the look of the film, the style of the film. There was also the fact that this were the serials from the 30s and the 40s made new again. The Flash Gordons, that sort of thing. In fact, what's so interesting to me is when you read about Lucas actually prepping the film to be made. He talked about it in terms as a Disney film. It's for kids. The dialogue, the style, it was intended for that audience, but it made the big leap to become a mass audience hit. Because, again, we hadn't seen this, a 30s and 40s serial done for the big screen with amazing effects, and it was familiar yet different.
Well, yeah, the only science fiction films that we had 1968, I think it was, 2001.
Oh, yeah.
Where those effects they had never been done before.
I actually think one of the key components to Star Wars success was think about it. We had Planet of the Apes, which, okay, spoiler alert, they're back on Earth. Or things like Soylent Green, where, hey, the world is ending and we're eating each other. Again, spoiler alert.
They were very negative aspects of what society was going to be. And even with, in 72, you had Silent Runnings, which is where you got the little droids and stuff. But it was the end of the world. The Earth had perished for the most part, and this was the only garden in the universe was in this little spaceship. But see, there wasn't anything, you're right, there wasn't anything positive
that's it exactly.
about science fiction at the time.
That, I think, is a really important component of
Well,
the
that's probably
success
because of the readers, because the science fiction readers weren't very positive type of people at the time. I mean, I remember I was one of them. And look at the books you read. You read the Asimov and
Future Shock, and
exactly. And then the only kind of good future was Ray Bradbury, but even he would put a twist in it, an O. Henry twist, and you'd end up stranded in space for the rest of your life. But
not to interrupt, but we were establishing, again, you're a different sort of Star Wars fan in that you actually worked in the industry. In fact, I want you to talk about, now this is 87, right? When you end up working actually on Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, I was, I had gotten into movies by, and actually a high school teacher of mine who left teaching high school after Proposition 13 and went into the film business, and he worked on this film which was going to Live and Die in L.A., which was Billy Friedkin's comeback film after his heart attack.
Oh.
And to say he was on his best behavior is overstating it, because he was amazing. He was terrific. He didn't, all the nightmare Billy was gone. And I talked to his editor, Bud Smith, and that's another conversation for another day. I mean, I have some secrets about The Exorcist and movies like that are just going piss me off is what it did. But so I worked on that, and then I was working on other films, and I was working on Mannequin, and I was in the LA office working with the editors while they were filming in Philadelphia. And at Lionsgate Studios, which I think still at the time was owned by Robert Altman, there was another production there that was just starting up, and it was Masters of the Universe.
Now, this was for the Canon Group, right?
This was for the Canon and directed by Gary Goddard. And I would talk to this one guy who was working there, and he was really cool. And he worked in comic books, and we would talk comic books. And I was right out of college, so I wasn't collecting comic books like I used to be in college. So I didn't go every week to the comic book store. And this man, his name is William Stout, Bill Stout, he comes in and he goes, "Have you seen, what was it, The Batman Returns?" And I said, "No." He goes, "Oh, I'll get you a copy." So he got me a copy, a first issue edition copy of Frank Miller's Batman Returns, and or else I wouldn't have gotten it. So we became friends, and I would go over there and watch, the artists. And there was, at the time, there was 4 of them. There was Bill Stout. There was a man called Ed Eith, who is better known as the man who predicted the future from Back to the Future 2. And also he worked on Rocketeer, and also he did storyboards for Captain EO. Wow. So he and I became really good friends. And then I became friends with the other, George Jensen was there, and a couple other people. So they were going to move over to Laird Studios, which was now, I think it's called Culver Studios, which is where they shot Gone with the Wind and King Kong and all that stuff. And I was done with Mannequins, so I asked if there was a position for me, and they said, yeah, you could be our production assistant. So I was the production assistant on Masters of the Universe. So I was responsible for making sure that all the artwork was where it was supposed to be. And Bill and I eventually became really good friends because I moved into Pasadena, into his neighborhood. And his wife once told me, she goes, Bill thinks that you're the perfect PA. I go, oh, really? He goes, yeah, you would be there whenever anybody, you'd go around, you'd talk to people, you'd help them, whatever. As soon as a producer came in or the director or somebody of importance came in, you would disappear. They couldn't find you. They'd look around. They didn't know where you were until they needed a certain piece of art. Then all of a sudden, you were there with the art, you put it in front of him, and you left again. He goes, that's what the perfect PA was, somebody who knew what was going on and didn't get in anybody's way.
What kind of intrigues me about Masters of the Universe, this is released to theaters in 87, and the original Star Wars trilogy had wrapped in 83. But everybody in the industry, I mean, it had been such a big rock in the river that everybody wanted one of those.
The next one, yeah.
Interesting you use the word next one, because everybody who launched a fantasy film series, nobody ever made one fantasy film during this series, this time.
Oh, I know.
They were all looking to, I'm going to do the first of a trilogy or a series or whatever. And so this is, Masters of the Universe that had already had the huge success from the Mattel toy line. So it's like, this is going to be our Star Wars. And so did you hear that a lot? I mean, face it, you're there with the artists who are doing the pre-production art, which is then used to help make the sets and the costumes and that sort of thing. Did the S word come up a lot then?
Oh, yeah, of course. As a matter of fact, one of the artists, his name was Sergio Mazzoli, I think his name was. Either he worked on Star Wars or he said he worked on Star Wars. And he created I guess you could call them the stormtroopers for Evelyn. And if you look at them, they look a lot like the stormtroopers from Star Wars, except they're blue. And it was...
And you wonder, is that a note that came down to Gary and the team from
they
Mattel?
Gotta be blue.
They got to be blue, because legal tells us they got to be blue. It can't be white.
Yeah. But when the movie came out, the opening weekend wasn't the greatest, but it was okay for that kind of movie. But then the phenomenon was it did better the next weekend, and that never happens.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
But then what happened? Was Canon went bankrupt.
Oh, that's right.
And they had to pull the movie. Now, the movie didn't get bad reviews. It got okay reviews. I mean, Dolph was Dolph. I'd be back. But Courtney Cox was in it, and she was a cute little girl. She was, people liked her. And then Frank Langella just ate up the scenery in a very positive way as Skeletor. So the movie was getting a fan base. But then all of a sudden it disappeared. And it never recovered. I think it recovered, when it was sold to somebody else, and then they brought it out on videotape. But I'm pretty sure, I mean, after the second week, they had a second script. They were ready to go into production right away. So it just happened that, Canon just overextended themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think the budget was originally about $15 million, and it went up to $25 million. Mm-hmm. And at that time, that still was a lot of money, but it wasn't a lot of money. Yeah. I mean, think about Star Wars. The original budget was $9.5 million, and they went over budget to $11 million. So it was like...
and there were executives at Fox calling for George's head because of that overage at that time. And
so it was neat to work on the film and see that, because I was a fan of Star Wars. So when Star Wars first came out, I couldn't get enough of what Star Wars was. I would buy the books, I would buy the records, I would buy I listened to that soundtrack more than I would listen to Elton John's latest album. And it was just, and that's kind of where I discovered soundtracks too. It was Jaws and Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And The Omen.
Omen, that was Jerry Goldsmith, right?
Yeah. Pizza, basically.
Oh, yes. It's so interesting because it's like when you're our age, you grew up with... Do you remember when you'd watch the title sequences for the Irwin Allen television shows?
Oh, yeah.
And the music for those shows were done by Johnny Williams.
Johnny Williams, yeah.
Johnny Williams. And it was only...
And also Goldsmith, too. Didn't he do a lot of this?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, these are the guys who earned their seat at the table doing the big budget,
Henry Mancini. I mean, he did one of the greatest, what is it, Gunn?
You're right. The theme for Peter Gunn, which then kicked open the door for doing things like, the Pink Panther theme. But yeah, it's just that there was definitely a food trend. But I always loved the fact that Johnny Williams, it's kind of that Woody Allen thing where, comedy is the kids' table, but when you write music for television, you're Johnny Williams. But when you go and you write music for film, you're John Williams.
John Williams.
By the way, folks, just to interrupt here, this is why I was excited about doing this show with Brian. This is mainline geek talk here, folks.
Yeah, I'm not a know-it-all.
I
do know it all,
but in a charming sort of way.
Yes, yeah. I'm not too obnoxious. Well, I'm not too obnoxious to people who like this stuff. Mm-hmm. Again, I go to Comic-Con every year, and you're in a room with 150,000 people just like you, and you go to lunch, and you're sitting there eating, and somebody says, "Can I sit at this table?" And you say, "Absolutely." And they start off the conversation was, "Well, what do you think about this?" Mm-hmm. Now, they don't ask you if you watched the show. They just ask you what you thought about the cliffhanger in the last episode. And, of course, you know what they're talking about. So that's what you got to be on your toes. You got to know all these things because geeks are constantly making sure that you have the cred.
And that's the thing. When you're with these folks, it literally the underlying message is keep up, because they've seen everything. I love that you brought up Comic-Con because again, that's actually a very key part of Brian and Maya's relationship. But did we actually meet at Comic-Con?
No, the original way we met was I was working at Countrywide doing phone support. And this was when computers were just coming in and stuff like that, and the internet. Right. And they would allow us go on the internet, and I found a Disney website that told me about Disney. It was Al Lutz's.
Oh, God, yes. The very first website I actually worked for.
Was it Mouse Planet?
Well, this was before it became Mouse Planet. This was when it was the Disneyland Information Guide. It was called the Dig.
The Dig, that's right. I was trying to think of that.
The funniest thing, I'm coming up on my 25th year of writing for the web. And what happened was I was a print guy. And my ex-wife Michelle reached out, and she's like, "Hey, I'm working with this Al Lutz guy on this DIG thing, and we realized that we need content, and so could you write a story?" And it's like my day job at the time was working at Barnes and Noble, and the Michael Eisner book, Work in Progress, had just come out, and so I thought, well, hell, I could do a review of that. I could, knock out 500 to 600, words. And as a print guy, I was used to the whole, you finish your article, you submit it to your editor, they make some cuts. And if you're lucky and you work for a newspaper, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days down the line, it shows up in the paper. Or God help you if you work for a magazine, months later it shows up. So I send the Word doc off to Michelle, and it's like 45 minutes later, I get a note from her. It's like, it's up. It's like, what do you mean it's up?
Whoa.
It's up. I had handed it to her. She had handed it to Al. Al read it and said, perfect, and threw it up on the site. And it's like, and it was like that first little taste of heroin.
Yeah.
I mean, just the whole notion of, really? That's how fast these things go?
Or Mrs. Fields cookies,
There we go. Okay, all right. The G-rated. Yes, the first taste of the
oh, they do. They push those things like crack. You go to the mall and they go, would you like a little piece of cookie? And you go, yeah, sure. And all of a sudden you're buying 12 dozen cookies from them. But yeah, so I found this site, and your articles were, or you had the thing, Y4, that was your thing.
Yep.
And you had the picture of you with Alice on your shoulders.
But again, this was a sweet gig to have when you had a little girl. Between the various things Disney would send me that I could send to Alice, or the events we got to go to, or the movies, or that sort of thing. It was a fun time. And I was doing 3 stories a week for Al.
And then after a couple years, you announced that you were coming to Disneyland.
Oh God, that's right.
And you asked if, and also you solicited a cassette that you were going to do, and I'm still waiting for that. I don't know why I haven't received it yet.
Dang.
But
okay, next week. I swear to God.
But anyway, so you said you were going to be there, and you were going to give personal tours, and you'll just sign up. So I signed up, and I got there. I think I got there for the first one, and a few people showed up, and we went through, and it was remarkable because, I mean, I knew a lot about Disney, and the best thing about Disney, everybody wanted to go to Disneyland with me, and the reason why is because I knew where all the bathrooms were. And
that is a skill.
But now I learned,
but
now I learned all these great, like the windows and the pumpkin in Disney's Toontown and stuff like that. So I learned all these new things from you. And then your second tour, they didn't show up or something. And I was just sitting there waiting for you. And there was a couple, I can't remember who the people were, but I think they were friends of yours too. And we ended up going to the Plaza restaurant there. And we had restaurant. We kept on talking and talking. And then you and I exchanged emails, and we became email friends. And then I found out that you were going to Comic-Con. And at that time, I was working with Bill Stout. I was in his booth. I was helping him set up his booth. And you came by, and I introduced you to, and then I hung out with you a little bit. You got me in a couple panels. And it was just, and then the friendship began that way. And it wasn't just geeking out. What was great about you and I were almost like pen pals. And we would send each other emails, but they weren't an email like, oh, did you see the new this, or did you do that? They were deep. I mean, you would tell me about the stuff that was happening with you and Nancy. I would tell you about my stuff I was going through. So it was basically 2 old guys sitting on a porch, with their lemonade, talking about what was going on. And it was this email, and it wasn't like email next day email. It was email next couple months, an email next couple months, an email. And it just was. And then every time you came out here, you try to connect with me. And of course, I introduced you to Tito's Tacos, which is
well, there we go. That's one of the things I love about LA is tacos and burgers out there are religion.
In and out.
I still remember to this day my good friend Michael Radonia, who lived out here in Massachusetts with his lovely wife Robin, but again was a displaced Southern Californian. And so one trip I flew out with him to California, and seriously, we got off the plane in LAX, we got in the rental car and drove straight to the Tommy's at Rampart.
Tommy's and Beverly. Tommy's and Beverly, or Rampart and Beverly.
There we go. All right. And it was fun to see. And it was one of these things where he was the piece that came over his face. And he ordered his Tommy burger, and he told me exactly how to order it. And then we walked over to the outside thing where he taught me the stance.
Yep.
All right. Because when you have a Tommy burger, you have to hold it in a certain way unless you're going to destroy your clothing.
And if you're wearing a tie, you have to put it in the back of your...
There we go.
Or tuck it in. Oh, yeah. I knew that was the original Tommy's. Actually, the original one was on the corner, and then they bought the building in the back, and then they had a little Tommy's back there. But it was so funny because every time you went there, there was like a Taco Bell, and there was another hamburger stand, and nobody would go to those things.
No, of course. But again, in much the same way that Michael introduced me to the Tommy's, and again, we had that wonderful night where, again, when you took me to the taco place, okay, here's what you're going to order. Here's how
tacos.
There we go.
Yeah, it was tacos, and then their burritos. They're Colorado beef burritos. Yeah, they're every time I go to the airport or every time I go to that site. Well, I'm going to be visiting. My daughter just got accepted to UCLA.
Oh, so, congrats!
Thank you very much. But the first thing I thought of was I can have Tito's every time I will go visit her.
Okay.
Because, I do, an army travels on its stomach, and I'm an army. So
there we go.
But so that's we just, you came over to the house one time. I live in Pasadena. You came over, and it was just a friendship that, okay, here's somebody else who knows exactly what I went through as a kid in high school, as growing up, and is doing exactly what he wants to, and I was doing exactly what I wanted to at the time. I was a stay-at-home dad, and I kind of write too. But I had a cartoon was made of one of my scripts. Did you ever see the Hanna-Barbera when David Kirshner was there, Pirates of the Dark Water?
Oh, no, really?
Yeah.
Holy
Well, what
cow.
happened was there was the woman who was in charge of animation. She wanted to teach an animation class. So I was working there on a show called Wake, Rattle, and Roll. And so I was asked if I would take the class, to help her. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll take the class. Well, I did very well in the class. And one of the things about doing well in the class is they gave you a opportunity to write a script. So they came to me and they go, okay, we're going to do a new season of Pirates of the Dark Water, but we don't want to work on the myth, which was finding the jewels. We want standalones. So I said, okay.
What is it? The classic bottle show.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, and I came up with something, and I went and I pitched it. It is the Defiant Ones meet Predator meet The Most Dangerous Game.
Ooh, okay. That's a hell of a Venn diagram you got going there. Okay.
So they go, that's exactly what I don't think they understood. They go, okay, see if you can do this. So I wrote The Game Players of Undar, which is, if you listen to podcasts talking about each episode, people like this episode. It was fun to do. And I wanted to see, though I didn't get to see him, I wanted to see Tim Curry doing Bloth. So I wrote a lot of, not Bloth, Korg, I think, or whatever. And so I wrote a lot of his dialogue. And so, that's another claim that I've done a little bit of everything.
What's kind of cool, actually, folks, that what's worth noting here, this is season 2. You did that episode with Glenn Leopold, and this airs on ABC on November 29th, 1992. This is the same weekend that Aladdin opens in theaters, so at a time when people were really crazy into animation. So to be working on this show at that time, how cool.
Well, it was great. David Kirshner was amazing. He he could, if they really just let him do what he wanted to and kept him there for a couple more years, Hanna-Barbera would have been a force to reckon with. They would still be around because David Kirshner he's a remarkable man. He's come up with some of the greatest. I mean, he came up with the Chucky series, the Child Play series.
And, work in the animation side of the street again. He's the guy who created American Tail.
Yeah.
That was the thing that really scared Disney when Spielberg got into animation. The whole notion of, oh, God, we're competing with Steven Spielberg in the animation sphere. Did American Tail, didn't that open up against Oliver and Company, I want to say?
Yeah, I think so. And nobody was given Disney's good reviews back then. And then they did Mouse Detective, which I think kind of changed it until they brought into the Broadway world with Little Mermaid, which changed everything.
It did. By the way, folks, I know we are far afield.
Oh yeah,
Star Wars at this point. I'm sorry. I wanted on this show to make you understand that doing looking at Lucas with Brian go, it's going to be a different show. Where you're going to get some amazing show business anecdotes and interesting takes on history. And speaking of which, when we get back from this break, Brian's going to have talk to us about the very day we're talking again today that this show is being posted on May 4th.
May the 4th.
Be with you. So, but Brian's going to offer us some insights into how we actually got that holiday.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for this day.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
You were kind enough out ahead of doing today's show to do a little digging and wrote up something about May the 4th. Do you want to share your thoughts about that? Or?
Absolutely. Like I said, I have a 20-year-old son who is, he was raised in the geek tradition. And we do go back and forth every time we watch a show. Like right now we're watching Moon Knight. We will send each other a quote from it. And he hasn't seen the show yet, but I give him a quote that's not a spoiler, and he loves it. So I asked him, I go, when was the first time that you heard of May the 4th? As in May the 4th be with you. And he said he thinks it was during when The Force Awakens came out. So, but I thought I had heard about it before. So I did a little bit of research, and it actually, the first time it was used wasn't even in context with Star Wars. It was used 2 years after Star Wars came out. And remember, because Star Wars was such a phenomenon, even Reagan was using, Star Wars as talk about his program, because they knew that if you talked about something people knew about, then they would grasp to it. And in 1979, Margaret Thatcher was elected as Prime Minister of the UK. So her party, which I think was the Conservative Party at the time, they put a big page in the London Evening News, and it said, "May the 4th be with you, Maggie. Congratulations." So that was the first time that it was used as a thing, but not for Star Wars. But of course, they were trying to bring it into, so now everybody goes, "Oh, she's part of us," which we all know what happened to that, right?
Yeah, we do.
So I don't know if it was being used in the 70s or 80s, but then I think I heard about it in the 90s, but I don't think it was a holiday yet. The first celebration they had, the first to celebrate May the 4th as Star Wars Day, it was actually in Toronto in Canada in 2011. And they also did it in 2012 too. But then Lucas sold it to Disney.
Yeah.
And then Disney ran with it, and they made their Star Wars days at Disney World, I think during May the 4th and 5th, that weekend. So then it was becoming a thing. And people were like, it became a religious holiday to most Star Wars fans. But to the diehards like you and I, May the 4th was just a fake holiday. So
there we go.
If May the 4th was like Easter, then Orthodox Easter was May the 25th. That's our holy day. That's the day that we genuflect and say, thank you, because George, you made me come out of the shadows. I was able to talk to people. People realized that me being a geek was good for them, because before the internet, I had all my friends, they would call me up and they go, Brian, do you remember this movie that had that guy in it that did this thing and he did something else to another person? I go, oh, you mean this movie? And I go, yeah, that's it.
There we go.
And it was all because Star Wars made me popular. Now, it may have been too late, but still.
We predate VHS tapes. In fact, do you remember what you used to have to pay for a VHS tape? Like, for example, when Star Trek the Motion Picture first came out, to get a copy of it to take home was $79. Yep. That's in 80, 81 money?
And the VCRs, they were $1,000.
And they were the size of an engine block.
Yes.
And you brought this giant machine home and you had to set it up next to your television. And remember how the insert compartment would lift up like something NASA had built, and you'd slip the tape in and then it would drop in. I remember when, and I think this is what's kind of interesting, this is Michael Eisner over at Paramount who makes the call that they cut the price because Star Trek the Motion Picture hadn't really sold as well as they'd hoped. And so they cut the price of $79 down to $40, and obviously saw a whole lot more people picking up copies of this thing. And when Michael moved over to Disney, he had the entire Disney film library that they had only put 20 or so, films out available for VHS at Disney. And again, same price point. Sleeping Beauty, which, by the way, they put out because it was one of the things to the effect of, that one we can let out of the vault because it's too arty. It doesn't do as well as the other films when we released it to theaters. But same thing. Came out at the $79 price point, didn't sell as well as they expected. And then, that they lowered it to $40, and suddenly Disney's in, the home video business in a big way. Again, to bring this full circle, well, I think you were talking about getting your first Star Wars stuff on VHS, right? Yeah.
I got the first, and I can't remember what year. It had to be in the 80s. But I got my first, and I think I still have it someplace. So I get to see... I get to see Han shooting first. So, and I also have the laser disc too, but they got destroyed in a flood though. But anyway, and I remember I you would just watch them over and over again, even though and I would try to get the letterbox versions of it too. Because pan and scan just didn't work for me.
See, again, I know for the young listeners of the show, what is this pan and scan of what you speak? I mean,
we used to watch TV in a box.
There we
was
go.
A box.
There were, and it wasn't flat. It was a big thing. That again, engine block sized pieces of entertainment.
And you're right. Now that I think about most of the videos I bought were all genre films. Well, I was very lucky when I graduated from Loyola Marymount. My first job was working at CBS Fox Video.
Oh.
Now, CBS Fox Video was an offshoot, I think, of VCA. And VCA was the first video. I think Paramount did their own and Disney did their own, but then VCA did everybody else's.
Video Corporation of America, right?
And then they became... then 20th Century Fox, I guess, bought them, or there was something to do with them, and then they would just release other ones. So I would get my videos for half price or whatever. I would do very, very well, and I had a big collection. But and you'd watch them over and over again, and then I had some of the Disney ones in the clamshell. Special clamshell they had.
There we go. And again, I apologize. Again, two old guys talking here, but I want to tee up a special story to close out today's show. And again, to give you a taste of why you're going to want to come back to this, to the brand new version of Looking at Lucasfilm. But what was interesting about being a Star Wars fan early on is that we got New Hope in 77, we got Empire in 80, and then we got Return of the Jedi in 83.
Return of the Jedi.
And Brian will tell you, for those of us who, for example, when they did that cover story on George Lucas, for Time Magazine, and showed him up at Skywalker Ranch with a room full of props, and he was alluding to the 9-part saga, which then 99. Oh, did I say 9? I meant 6. But there was this weird window of time after that. It's like, well, when are you going to get around to the other films? It's like, well, I got other things to do. I'm doing Indiana Jones, I'm doing Willow, but I'm still doing Star Wars stuff. We got the 2 Ewok movies. We got the Droids animated series. We got the Ewoks animated series. But then George also began working with the Walt Disney Company. And, first up, of course, we get Captain EO, which you were just talking about, the gentleman who did some boarding on EO. But then we got Star Tours.
Star Tours.
And now, Brian, I want you to tell our listeners, because your initial Star Tours experience was very different, and not not just because of the way you got to experience, which was the 100-hour-long party.
Well, I think it was the second time they did this 100-hour party, or at least 2 or 3 days. The first time was for Captain EO, but the second time they did it for Star Tours. Now, I had a pass, so I knew I was going to eventually go there and see it. But I was working on a film called Gleaming the Cube. And it was the first starring role of an up-and-coming actor by the name of Christian Slater. When we started the film, he was like 16, but then we had to delay it, so now he was like 18. And I was the production assistant of the director, Graham Clifford. And so I hung out with Christian, and I helped him out whatever he needed. When we were filming on location, I would wake him up so he'd be on set on time. So it was the weekend of Star Tours, and of course I can't stop talking about it. And he was into Star Wars. Of course, he was an 18-year-old. And I go, they're having the 100-hour party. You want to go? And he said yes. So it was me, Christian, his girlfriend at the time, and another friend of his. So I think we got there about midnight of the first day. So we get there, and at midnight is when the rides were closing down for maintenance. They would close down for a couple hours. So the first line we got into, we didn't want to get into Star Tours right away because I think it was closed at the time, but then there was this line that would have lasted like 4 hours.
Well, didn't it go down Main Street?
Yeah, it went down all the way to almost to the entrance. So we decided to go on Space Mountain. So on to Space Mountain we go, and we're waiting in line. And it was about an hour or so, but that wasn't that bad. So we get into the rocket.
Mm-hmm.
We get up to the launch platform, and instead of going straight, it goes to the left. And we go in the back, and they take us out. They had shut down for maintenance. So we're like going, this can't be good. So we're trying to get on other rides.
Yep.
The lines are too long. So we see that there is no line for the Matterhorn. So we talked to one of the people there, and they said, yeah, it should open in about an hour. And we're thinking, or no, they said 45 minutes. So we're thinking, well, that's better than 3 hours. So we started waiting in line. I don't know if we were in the front of the line, but we were kind of like the first group. The thing about lines, as you notice, nobody wants to be first in the line. There'll be a group of people, and they'll just like walk around until one person gets in the line and starts the line. And as soon as that person does, now you've got 50 people in the line. So that's basically what happened. So we're at the front of the line, and one of the guys there was trying to talk us out of getting in line, and we're like going, we have nowhere to go. I mean, everywhere else is too long and stuff like that. But he was getting a little irritated at us. So finally, the ride starts. They start doing test rides, okay? And now Christian had been in the business for quite a while. When he was 3, he was in the Broadway and also... Okay,
yes, he was. I remember the Dick Van Dyke's revival of The Music Man, that the show went out on the road, never actually made it to Broadway. But yeah,
it didn't make it to Broadway? Okay. But I saw it in L.A. with him.
Oh, you're killing me.
Yeah.
I always heard that Dick Van Dyke wasn't necessarily a good Harold Hill because he was too nice.
Yes.
You just never got the killer instinct that you got from a Robert Preston. But
yeah, but it worked. It worked with him because he was more of instead of a con man, he was more of I believe him because he's a nice guy type of thing.
Okay.
So anyway, he's been in the business for 15 years. But he'd only been in like Name of the Rose and a film with a couple other films, but he's never had a starring role yet, and so nobody knows him. So we're in line, and they start doing the test, and all of a sudden you see this entourage comes up, and it's Corey Feldman, and he's got his entourage, and they go right in, and as he's going in, Corey goes, "Hey, hi, Christian. How you doing?" And he goes in, and Christian is like seething. He's going, "Nobody knows who I am. I just want to get on this ride." So we eventually get on the ride, and we're really happy. But now it's like 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning. And we decide that we're going to try to get in line for Star Tours. So we see the line, and we're going, God, we'll be here all day. But we're kind of resigned to the fact that we're going to do it. Well, Christian sees this girl that he's worked with films, and he talks to her, and she says to him, "I've been saving your place in line. Where have you been?"
God love her.
So everybody is like looking at him, but some people recognize him, so they go, okay, these two are actors. And so we get in line, and I don't think we had to wait like 15 minutes. So we got into the ride, and I'm telling you, it was an experience I have never had before in my life. It was something that I had done with my brothers. I had put them in a rocking chair or a desk chair, and I would move the chair while we'd be watching, like roller coasters on the TV, and I'd be doing that to them, but nothing like this. And it was funny because I recognized the voice of Rex, the robot. And I told everybody, I go, that's Pee Wee Herman. That's Paul Reubens. And they go, no, it's not. I go, yes, it is. That's Pee Wee Herman. And I knew because my friend had worked on Flight of the Navigator. And he told me that Paul, as a favor for Randall Kleiser, did the voice of the Navigator, the robot, but he had his credit as Paul Mall.
There you go.
So nobody knew it was Paul Reubens. So what I found out later was when they say, who could we get for the robot? And somebody says, well, why not the guy who did the robot in Flight of the Navigator? And another person says, you mean Paul Reubens? And he goes, no, the guy who did the voice in the Flight of the Navigator.
By the way, to do a quick tie back to Masters of the Universe, evidently the first person they brought in before Paul was Billy Barty.
Oh, yeah.
Who, of course, had done the voice of Figment for A Journey into Imagination. And the problem was, again, they get Billy in and, put him in front of the mic and it's one of these things where it's like, geez, that's a very salty old sea captain we got going there for the droid pirate. And it was like, let's try again. So, but no, you're not wrong. I mean, I remember from getting to do Star Tours after it opened in '87, and there was Disney had never done anything like this. I mean, but I think the moment that people really don't understand that, well, look at, remember how they promoted it, like, now the adventure is real.
Yeah.
Because again, you walked into the old Adventures Through Inner Space building and you made that turn, and there in front of you is a full-size Star Speeder and two characters that were made to be audio animatronics, R2 and C-3PO, and they're basically ignoring you while they kibitz back and forth and give you the setup for the show.
Well, I think it was the first time that they did something. They entertained you in the line.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think any line before, I was trying to think of it, and there was no line before that you were entertained in, and this was the first one.
Kuchana, Kuchana.
And we would always be, I had the whole spiel down too. I can't remember it right now, but I had everything down. And then we would notice the things in the baskets that were on.
Oh no, totally.
It was terrific. And then I love when you found out later that the robots were actually the skeletons of ducks and geese from America Sings.
Absolutely.
So it was incredible. And it made waiting in line. I would then get on it, and then there was no line, and I felt I was cheated that you didn't get the whole experience of watching the droid talk to you and then being shut down and then coming back up, and it was brilliant. It
was that rare ride where yes, you did feel cheated if there wasn't a line, because no, there's all this cool stuff to see, there's all this stuff to do.
I'm sorry, ma'am, you have to take care of your children. Oh, that's your husband? I'm so sorry.
Yeah, good stuff. Well, again, speaking of good stuff, folks, this is why this is the time and the right person to bring back Looking at Lucasfilm with.
I'm like the line to Star Tours. I've got everything, and I'm like, I have a story for everything, which is, again, my kids would go, yeah, Daddy made a new friend. So it's like, I like to, you have all these things in your head, and I'm very fortunately, you're going to hear all of them.
Yep, that's and face it, this is a great time to bring this show back, because the tail end of this month, we've got the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series debuting in Disney Plus. Likewise, we've got Star Wars Celebration coming over the hill and all the news there. So
which we will both be going to. So we will, and then I should mention that yesterday. Of course, this is going to be on May the 4th, but yesterday on May the 3rd, I went to the Star Wars. I didn't go yet, but I will be going to the Star Wars night at
Cool.
Disneyland. I hear you're going to go the 27th, right?
I am, but I'm very much looking forward to your take on the event and more to the point, think about everybody who's coming in from out of town to do Star Wars Celebration that, picked up tickets for the after hours event at Disneyland. I'd love to get your take on what to do and what not to miss and all that. So, but again, you're going to get all that.
It will be my first time in Galaxy's Edge, because I had been to Disneyland before the lockdown. I had bought a pass and I was going to go, but I was by myself, and I didn't want to go into Galaxy's Edge by myself for the fear that I would go into a fetal position and just start crying, and I wouldn't have anybody to pick me up. So I'm waiting till this time. So I'm going to be seeing Galaxy's Edge for the first time. And I just hope that I can control myself and not buy 5 lightsabers and maybe just the one.
Okay.
Or maybe 2, the lightsaber and then the dark saber. I got to have a dark saber, right? You got to have a dark saber.
This tells you everything you need to know about the show, folks. We are now discussing whether or not you actually need a darksaber. All right. Well, anyway, that is going to do it for the first installment of the brand new version of Looking at Lucasfilm. We welcome you folks to listen. We're going to try to keep the show on an every 2-week schedule going forward. Tell you what. If you've enjoyed the stories that Brian has shared today, can you tell the nice folks where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, I have a couple of them, but right now the one I'm using is my Twitter. It's a geek with children, and children is spelled CHILDRN. And so I have that on Twitter, and if you go there, I'm going to put up my review of Flaming Hot Cheetos Mountain Dew, which is not good.
I'm sorry. There's at least too many words in that name. Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, whoa. That's.
But if you were a geek, before there was Red Bull, there was Mountain Dew.
Well, there's a lot of us who are dealing with dental problems because of that exact same beverage.
The original energy drink.
But not a good energy.
No,
not a good energy.
But I love Mountain Dew.
So again, look for Brian there if you're looking for him on social media. Nancy would like me to remind you can find us on social media at Twitter and Instagram is Jim Hill Media, and over on Facebook it's Jim Hill Media News. And if you like today's show, I want to remind you we do have some other podcasts here. We have Disney Dish that I do with Len Testa. We likewise have Fine Tuning that I do with Drew Taylor. And, of course, we have Marvelous Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams. Beyond that, if you could do Brian and I a favor, if you could go over to Apple Podcasts and rate and recommend this brand new version of Looking at Lucasfilm, I would appreciate that. And if you really, really, really like what you heard here, you want to go to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be helpful too. And I think for now that's going to do it. But thank you, Brian, for nudging me to bring the show back, and more to the point, agreeing to help get the show back up out of the ground. I can't wait to hear all of the other stories.
Well, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about. We should talk about Book of Boba Fett too and stuff like that.
We will,
because I want to know your. I know we have talked a little bit about it, but I've loved your writing. I've loved your reviews, so I can't wait to hear about this.
We'll get to that.
And I get to discuss it with you.
Yes, folks. The new subtitle for the show, 2 old farts talking. So, all right. That'll be it for now. Thanks for listening.
May the 4th be with you.
That's a great button. All right. Thanks for listening, folks. Take care.